some of them,
I'm not too far away from that.
Okay, go ahead and call the meeting to order. Policy and procedure meeting July 2nd, 9 a.m. Amanda, would you call the roll, please?
Sure.
Here.
Sure.
Whatever.
Barron.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Raymond.
Here.
Phil.
Present.
Anderson.
Present. One absent, Troy. We have public comment. Seeing no public comment, committee chair reports. Russell Bills, Transportation and Highway.
Nothing really new at the county. It's kind of a quiet month other than for dealing with the little water issues here and there on our road district. We got a petition for a box culvert down in the Bryce Ash Grove Township. And that's about it.
Dan?
We'll have our planning and zoning office report, and there'll be a conditional use permit for an increase from 10 to 14 dog kennel license for Greg and Tina Samet. We'll be discussing ordinance enforcement, regional planning commission, and the subdivision ordinance revision.
Alrighty. Kevin, finance?
I don't think there's any new, it's just normal business. We got bids coming in for insurance, for health insurance, but otherwise everything's, no news on the state yet, so.
Okay. Lyle, anything going on in management?
Not a thing. Basically, we're just going to get progress reports on all the projects and probably going to have some claims for the 2 roof projects for materials they've ordered. Both companies are going to be probably submitting some claims for that. So they've got stuff ordered, they just can't start for some reason. I don't know, a little rain.
Yeah. Something with the monsoon.
Boiler project, it's going along. I think we're good.
Alrighty. John Schur, Judicial and Public Safety.
Just be getting our normal reports. Still be having discussions about security at the courthouse.
Dale Schultz, all your committees.
Ooh.
Tax versus benefit.
Tax committee will take the normal reports also and talk about animal control and animal control software. That will probably be it. Oh, health. I don't know. We'll take the reports from health and IT. I don't know what's going on. Not a whole lot.
Have to find out Tuesday on IT.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Speaking of slow months, as the report. Anything going on?
I haven't been sleeping much. Well, it's been a while since we've been able to community. I think last month I missed because I was down in Atlanta. CSX Railway paid for me to go down there, and for 3 days take a hazmat training. It was really beneficial. Made some good connections to CSX Railway, which runs through town here, and also Martin, Papineau, Woodlands, Wellington, and Milford. So that would be good in case anything ever happens with that railway when we get to Granite. LEBC passed its bylaws on June 9th, so one more step forward. We're continuing to make further progress on the HMR plan, or Hazardous Materials Response Plan. And our next meeting is 14th at 2 p.m. down in EOC. That's the same day as County Board. Moving on, beneficiary installed a radio and a light bar into my truck, which would be extremely beneficial for when incidents happen. Very visible, and also communicate with background. Thank you, Dan, for making that connection. Flooding. Multiple areas of the county have been experiencing problems. Most of the rain that has fallen over the past month has actually fallen in the northeastern portion of the county. So up there, Beaverville, Martin, Papineau, that area. Pathfinder Township has had a lot of roads that have closed because see that water from Beaverville overflow that way towards the Iroquois River. Talked with their township road commissioner multiple times, and yeah, no homes been friends, a lot of roads washed out, and at this point, sinkholes and such like that. Village of Beaverville, they had some flash flooding issues, but nothing too significant. Some sewers backed up, but at that level, it's individual homeowners' responsibility. The village of Martin had some serious problems. They had standing water that wouldn't go away. They had an emergency meeting to talk about it, which I attended. That was about 2 weeks ago. And ultimately, they chose to do nothing at that time because the water was going down. But I met with them to talk about what they needed to do if it were to get worse, how to properly declare disasters, and ask for the county help if they wanted to do so. But the waters went down and they didn't need any help, which is good. City of Watsika, as all of you know, I'm sure had plenty of problems. We did open up a shelter, Red Cross did, that is, over at Trinity Church. At the most, they had 11 people staying there at their peak. On average, they just had one family forward. But before they opened the shelter, they were putting up multiple families in the hotel. So, shelter was good, was set up well. Thank you to Red Cross for doing that. There's multiple families that were displaced. But since then, the waters have gone down, and City of Watsika seems to be more comfortable. I've been talking with Mayor Hardwood about that. She's doing better and better. And looking at some dry weather, hopefully drier weather, comparatively the past month, so hopefully the situation will calm down. Village Donovan talked about standing water in their town last night. They're having drainage issues with tile. So they're going to apply for a federal EPA grant to try to get some tile work done in their town. With multiple citizens that have had water in their basements for over a month. But it's just in their basements. There's not much that, it's not a disaster. There's not much I can do. I'll try to go to that meeting, and they're looking at their potential resolutions to this issue. They're going to snake out all the tile in town today or tomorrow as soon as they can, see what that leads them, and so on and so forth. That's what I have for reports. Anybody have any questions?
Questions for Eric? All right, thanks, sir. Chairman's comments. Add them as we go along. ETSB Advisory Panel Update. Evan, you're up.
Okay. I got a pile of papers. That is an attachment that I attached to the wrong thing, so that's why it's loose. Yeah, please. Yeah, I'm sorry. One of these, one of these. I've got some extra cookies on this too. No problem. No, I found it. I'm ready. Okay. You want to decide if we did it? All right. You should have some extra ones for you to pass out. Those won't be extra, those are mostly for you guys, so.
Yeah, there's extra, there's an advisory team report. Yeah.
I got a couple extra of these. You want one? Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Anybody else want? Well, let me introduce myself. I don't know everybody in the room. I know some. My name is Kevin Hagg. I'm the director of Southern Market Operations for Riverside, which means I have an office here in Watsika. But my background has been all EMS. I'm also director of Riverside Ambulance, and have been for the last for 20 some odd years, and I've been with Riverside for 27. EMS for 33. Dale and I go back quite a ways when we talk about ambulances for the Clifton area. So when I present this, I think it was like last October, last November, something like that, and Mr. Kopis had given me a phone call and wanted to know if I wanted to sit on a committee that would be looking at EPSB. And I think Kyle called me probably, I don't know, mid-April, something like that. We put this committee together. And the members of the committee are on here. Chris Curry representing IMH Ambulance, myself, Jeff Flynn representing the fire chiefs of Iroquois County. Roger Levesque was representing EPSB as the president. Derek Hagan is the police officer representation. We had Rick Peacefield and Bob Harwood representing the mayors of the county. Kyle was there, and Nigel was also there representing EPSB. So we sat down. We had quite a task at hand. We were presented. One of the things, the biggest task was how are we going to fund 911 going forward, knowing that we're kind of at the dilemma that we are with the phone lines disappearing. Cell phones weren't enough to pick up that deficit that was being created. So we sat down. We reviewed all of the contracts, the fees for every department in the county. We reviewed budgets from 2014, 2015, actual outcomes in some of those. We reviewed the joint dispatch budget, and also then we discussed for, I don't know, must have been about 3 months how we're going to make the change. So kind of give you an idea how we come about those things, and I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see my own paper. All right. When you look at the budget for the Joint Dispatch Center for 2015, they had a total revenue based off of, at the bottom here, that revenue was $390,000, almost $391,000. The expenses, however, was $466,000. So therefore, it started out with a deficit of $75,000. So we're already working with in the hole. And below that, you can see the different where the revenue was coming from for that. Basically, most of that revenue is coming from the users, the end users, the stakeholders. Police, fire, EMS are the main users of that. When we reviewed the budget for 2014 for the EPSB, they are already operating at a $74,000 deficit. So the task at hand was pretty, in my opinion, was pretty astronomical because we're already looking at a deficit of $150,000 and trying to pay for a budget of $466,000. In my business, that's not fun to do. And I know from your guys' perspective, it's not fun to do either. So as we looked at that, we come up with some different proposals, and we had some discussion on those proposals. First one would be the sheet that I actually handed out that was separate. This would be to increase the call to service fee to about $25.53 per occurrence. So every time that the Joint Dispatch Center actually set off the pagers for a fire department, for an ambulance service, or made a call to a police officer that you need to respond to this area or this residence, that was going to generate a fee. All right. It does now. That fee is probably close to $10 an occurrence. All right. So this would be, in essence, a little more than doubling that. Of course, when we took this, we had Jeff Lynn take this to the fire chiefs. We had the mayors take it to the mayors of the county and talk about this. Of course, as you can see by that sheet, some of those prices were pretty astronomical for them. Now, however, what it does do is it does reduce the cost to the county and to the city of Waukega in that process when you base it off of fee for service. Unfortunately, when you did that, it still equated to a deficit of $50. Although that's not $75,000, that's still a deficit. And trying to make sure that we can pay for staff, it didn't allow for any increase in that over an annual basis, because as you traditionally, employees expect to have some type of a raise every year. That proposal does not necessarily guarantee that you're going to have money going forward as the years go on. All right. The other problem that we were facing with that is Governor Rauner has been talking about doing a freeze on property taxes. Well, if you've ever been involved in a fire protection district or a school board or anything, well, even county board, rely heavily on property taxes for income and revenue. That became a concern with fire chiefs, because if we go forward and we do increase the ability to levy that tax, it's exciting. All right? So then we had a second proposal that we put on the table. All right? And I know that this has been put on the table many years before. This is the first time I've been involved in it. But we actually looked at some type of a public safety tax in order to be able to fund the 911, the Joint Dispatch Center going forward, and also the ETSB. You probably read in the paper, I think you had in the paper, that Governor Rauner signed a bill that gave us a little bit more money, which is awesome. That is great. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be about $140,000, somewhere in that range, of additional revenue. The problem is when you look at that, if the ETSB itself is operating on a budget this year of 0 at the end of the day, they're looking at 2020. And I don't know if you've been educated, but 2020 is coming down the road where the government has mandated that by 2020, all equipment that's in a 911 center has to be compatible to the next generation 911. And NIDA shares with us that approximate cost to do that is going to be $800,000. And the concern that comes from the ETSB is that if we're at 0 today, and we're walking forward, we might get another 150, but we're still going to lose landlines because the phone companies are pushing by 2017 that there will no longer be hardwired phones in your house. That is our that's where our money is generated for the ETSB. All right, so currently, if you still have a hardwired line in your house, you're paying $2 a month towards the ETSB. Okay, so that's going to be a cost saving to the taxpayer at the end of the day. Cell phone is much cheaper as far as the tax goes. So we were kind of debating on how we're going to do this. Well, we talked about a 0.25% tax, and I'm going to tell you that that group is divided on whether it should be a 0.25% or a 0.5%. My philosophy in this process, if you're going to ask for money, you might as well just ask for what you need. Yes, there's going to be a need down the road, but hopefully if state government changes and becomes a little more business friendly, that we'll be looking at a little bit better economy as we go in the next 10 years. But that's kind of how I look at it. All right. Well, if we do a 0.25% sales tax, the revenue that we can generate is $468,000, which is just enough, a little bit more to cover today's expenses for the Joint Dispatch Center. Now, that doesn't mean that those of us, the end users, the fire, the EMS, and the police, should quit paying for the service. My belief is that we have to have some skin in the game. All right, and personally, I would like to have skin in the game because as a customer of that, I have an opportunity to bitch if something goes wrong. All right, if I'm not paying for anything, I really don't have a ground to stand on if I have something go wrong. So we've got to have some skin in the game. So if you take the current that we're charging currently for the dispatch fees, and you cut that in half, we all still have skin in the game, and it still produces about $200,000 of additional revenue. So at the end of the day, if you take what the possibility, and I say approximately $468,000, if you take that, add in the dispatch fees, you're looking at a surplus, although $200,000 is not much of a surplus, but a surplus of $200,000 that as you go into the next 10 years, you're able to upgrade your 911 system, you're able to pay for your employees, and be able to have some cushion for a rainy day fund in the event that a piece of equipment went south on you and you had to replace it. You know, we all said, you know, nobody wants another tax. You know, I sat at the table with a bunch of conservative people. You know, and when we come up with Proposal 2, we were all leaning toward Proposal 2 because that was probably the best answer to our situation. But there was a lot of head rubbing going on about that because nobody wants an extra tax on anything. So we had to look at it. What does that really mean? What is it taxing? You know, are we taxing the right people or the right thing to make sure that we can get the revenue? You know, the things when we look at what that tax doesn't apply to, and you guys probably already know this, I was being educated when I was doing it also, is it does not apply to like food from a grocery store or prescription or non-prescription medications, medical appliances. It does not apply to cars, trucks, motorcycles, aircraft, boats, snowmobiles, trailers, farm machinery. That's what it does not apply to. So where does the tax come from? just department store items. You know, if I go to Walmart, not groceries, but if I go to Walmart and I spend $100, at the end of the day, I've contributed 25 cents to the PSB or to Joint Dispatch 911, whichever way you want, wherever we put that money. If I buy something at a gift shop, or if I buy something, you know, I think for a cup of coffee, I add a cent to my cup of coffee at Vips that I have every morning when I come to town. Or it does add to the motor fuel tax. So, I mean, those are the things that do get taxed. As a committee, after we've taken it to the mayors and to the fire chiefs to get their input on it, Proposal 2 is basically what that advisory board is looking at and presenting to the county board. That's the way we feel that in the future, as we go forward and we look 10, maybe even 20 years down the line, that this service, which is incredibly important to the community, continues to stay viable, cost-effective, and is here for forever. Questions? I'm right here.
Go ahead.
Kevin,
We might hit the same thing.
nice presentation. You hit on a couple items here, the fee-for-service ideal. You hit on the demand that we're having on the system. And then you come up with a public safety tax, which we're familiar with that,
Sure.
which is actually a sales tax.
Correct.
So your paper towel, whatever, is going to get hit on that. But since this cost is really being created by communication devices, when you look at fee for service, which is a good ideal, why don't we try to get active on taxing communication devices?
Like your
Taxing telephone, computer, anything that flows information. Communicate information, because that's how it's coming in. The people who don't use these devices are still buying paper towels. They probably live without a hardline phone, and they might live without a computer. Why are they paying the tax? So, my thought has been in the past, and will continue, that we need to tax basically the users. Now, I know the state of Illinois is not big on it, since they hand out all the cell phones free to a lot of people, but they don't pay tax.
Right, and that creates a problem because of the state of Illinois is in favor of some of those things. Now, in essence, by putting in a public safety tax, we are taxing all the communication devices through the public safety tax. However, you are right, we're also taxing the paper towel that you buy at Walmart.
Yeah, that's my feeling, and I wish that somebody that makes a lot of money in this business would figure out how to get a local tax on it. And I've seen before where there's been little Mickey Mouse phone taxes put on areas. I can't remember, years ago I got a little notice from the Department of Revenue as being a retailer saying if you're in this district you got to charge more as a retailer. And one thing was down in Paxton. They passed some type of little thing where they could actually tax communication devices. Exactly what detail? I remember I brought up the 90 years ago, and there was a lot going on, so I imagine...
Telecommunications tax is what you're talking about.
I don't know what it was.
You do it countywide, but I think you don't municipalities can do it.
Yeah, and so that's, that's where the revenue needs to come from, is the communication devices. So
Would each town have to do that?
I don't know, and actually probably could have a blanket at every municipality in there. But again, it would be taxed in the area. The bottom line, we'd be getting the money for the people using it.
Now,
And be a fairer tax than just a general sales tax on the paper towel.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but unfortunately, where do we get to buy our devices? If I'm buying it in Kankakee County or Champaign County, are they going to get that money if I buy that device? I agree with you. I completely and utterly agree with you, but in the essence, I was sitting here thinking as you were talking, I said, where did I buy my last computer? Well, do it. Doggone it, I did it at Best Buy in Kankakee. So that means Kankakee or Bradley at that point would probably end up getting that tax money.
Right. You buy it from Dell, you don't get nothing here.
Right, if I did it online or something, I mean, Although I like that idea, that, you know,
Yeah,
that does make it.
and I would think that this county would have some way of taxing just phones, because I know even on cable companies, we have to sign a franchise agreement.
Well, the state
All
government,
municipalities sign a franchise agreement to have a cable company or any utility coming into their neighborhood. They gotta have a franchise agreement assigned with, and then you
unfortunately,
can tax that.
the government, state government, limited the amount of money that we could use on a cell phone. If we were still able to charge our $2 surcharge for every cell phone somebody carries in this county, we probably wouldn't be, I wouldn't be standing in front of you guys talking. Yeah, I really wouldn't be. Unfortunately, they took that and cut it. I mean, Rounder's done good and given us a little bit more, and that helps. It just doesn't get us over the hump that we need to be as a service.
20 years ago, the state seen where it was going, so they actually took the big money off the cell phones, knowing the hard lines are going to disappear. Yeah, it'd be like giving us, well, they could give us double on smoke signal tax or whatever.
Yeah.
But
It's amazing the difference between the taxes on landlines and cell phones. I don't know why they didn't shift some of that burden. I had a figure, because, realistically, they're getting less off the landlines, but yet they tax the hell out of them. And I'm probably one of the few people still has two landlines.
You might, even businesses today, I can speak for Riverside out here, we have one landline in the building anymore, and that's for emergency uses only. Everything is done through a computer system, and, I can sit in my office here in Muskegon, and I can call clear over in Coal City with 4-digit line, because it runs through the computer system at the hospital. And that's probably why we're losing as many lines from a business aspect also, because everybody's going through their computerized phone system. Unfortunately, technology has brought us to me standing in front of you guys today that, all of it's good for the end user is awesome. I got my computer now on my hip. I can do everything from my car. No, I didn't, not my car. You didn't do that right. Okay. But I can do everything I need to without even stepping foot in the office from my little iPhone. I never thought I'd ever see that day. But, we're here, and now the big companies, because that landline is expensive to maintain, want to get rid of the doggone thing. So the few landlines that, thank you, Kevin, for your contribution. I appreciate that, but maybe in 2017 you might have to look at something different. I don't know if they'll pull the trigger completely, but that's the deadline they set for themselves. That by this time we're going to get rid of all these things.
Kevin, just off the subject a little bit, did your communication device work when the scrappers decided to steal the piece of cable at the Papineau?
Only if I was north of 52. If I was north of 52, it worked. If I was south of 52, I had no service.
So when you were in Iroquois County, really down here at the office,
Yep.
you was out of business.
We used one personal cell phone in the building that was still IVC, and that was the only connection we had for the entire day to do business.
Yeah, that old cell phone, that old flip phone worked.
The old flip phone for still worked.
This may be a NIDA question. The $800,000 cost to go next gen, is it or is it not an unfunded mandate? Are they gonna?
There is grants that are going to be out there, but what we got to remember is everybody in the state of Illinois is going to be applying for these grants. So I feel they're going to be competitive, but there is grants. Just to clarify too with Kevin, 87 cents is what landline and cell phone are now. The new legislation that went through went down from $2 to 87 cents. I don't think you'll see it in a telephone bill price till January, because the phone companies have to have time. Even though the bill was effective yesterday, everybody has to have time to get things in order, and January 1st is the target date to actually start receiving funding. Like I talked about before, many will get one check from me in January instead of getting 30 checks because everything's going to go through the state of Illinois, adjustments for every day as far as our network costs, and then in terms of extra.
But no, there was a bunch of counties that didn't have 911.
There's 9 counties that don't have 911, and with this new legislation, they will now have 911. It's not going to happen overnight, obviously, because it takes a while to get 911 up and running, but that was a mandate in this, that everybody in the state of Illinois will have 911.
The whole system that we got roughly runs on, what, a little over 800,000 with both budgets?
With both budgets, probably, yeah,
It's
a
close.
little bit over 800,000.
So this extra 200,000 would be, it doesn't seem like much when you got other things coming in. You know, that's still 20%, you know, 15-20% of your budget.
It gives you that little cushion if you need to, and then when you do have to upgrade it, I don't know, if you know, doggone, my phone only lasts me about 3 years before I have to go to the next generation phone in order for it to be work. You know, this equipment, and you probably already seen this equipment, this is major equipment and expensive. You know, the next generation is going to allow me to make a 911 phone call anywhere in this county, and 9 of these folks are going to be able to pinpoint me exactly where I'm at from my cell phone. I mean, that's just one of the things that system does. Today, we have to approximately guess where you're at. They can get close, but...
Well, they can follow you pretty close now, can't they? Like that Odyssey situation with that bank guy.
It's time, but it just takes the time to do it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be more precise with next generation on when they could actually tell what floor you were on in a building, is what next generation is going to bring. So if you have a, you know, not that we don't have any around there, but let's say we were in Champaign or something, somebody's on the 7th floor, they in turn could say it's on the 7th floor exactly where they're at. So that greatly helps because instead of having some, you know, first responders running throughout the building, going door to door, especially in hotels and stuff, actually you can pinpoint exactly where that person is and the time to call them.
Situation in the other county where they had that person that went to the wrong, the 911 went to the wrong.
Right.
That won't happen again.
Exactly.
Well, that'd be nice, but I mean, I don't know how they're going to pay for it. You know,
I'm doing bids, evidently, I just got on the board. Well, I've done some research on Cook County. Cook County, they just passed an ordinance, a tax on tobacco, tax on alcohol. They just set a figure on it. And when they need more money, they just go back to their ordinance and raise that amount.
you got to realize Cook County's a different animal.
It's a county, we're a county.
Yeah.
We're both counties.
Their taxes, property taxes are half what ours is.
And they get
I'm just saying what is available. They can pass an ordinance, any county can pass an ordinance.
No.
Not that they
Yeah, we can pass our own tax. We can pass our own tax too.
My concern is I don't see anybody, because we don't know what the state's gonna do. And right now, they're fighting because one side wants more taxes. And if they do that, even 0.25%, I don't see how you can get that passed. And no, I'm not saying we need to do something. We gotta make the damn thing work. But I don't know, you need a backup plan, because I don't know how people just don't care anymore. They just don't want to pay no more.
The backup plan is proposal 1.
That is the backup plan.
Yeah.
And then we're just shifting costs to what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, the taxpayer at the end of the day is still going to end up paying for it. To give you an example, you know, Jeff Lynn, who's a customer of Riverside Ambulances and chief on this, you know, he's telling me, well, you know, I'm going to see an increase in my fire department increase. And I said, you're going to see an increase in the subsidy you pay the ambulance too, because I got to recoup that cost somewhere along the line on my end of doing business, so I'm going to get it from you and from Clifton and from Danforth for that service. Now not only they pay double what they're normally paying, but then I'm going to charge them one more time.
Most of our fire departments aren't maxed out. Like we're maxed out on our levies, so.
They will be maybe
Yeah.
because
A couple
of...
more years, come on.
Well, especially if they go to freezing tax, I'm sure everybody will scramble to get their max cap, you know, before it goes into play. I don't know that for sure, I'm just speculating.
And if you guys look at that, Ashland Fire pays $900 now, and I think it's up to $5,000 or $6,000 is it what it goes, if it goes by call for service, is that right on that sheet? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so it goes from $900.
No, oh, that's PD, I'm sorry. Ashland Fire Department goes $1,700.
$1,700, somebody goes to $5,000 or $6,000, Cissna or Crescent or...
Buckley does, Vance Township does, Cissna Park does, goes close to $5,000.
I can
So
say
they go from
they're
900 to 5,000.
They're gonna be complaining because they got that interstate, and anytime they get a call on that interstate, they got to send somebody out. They ain't gonna get no money out of that guy.
In most cases, there's no transport. You know, from an ambulance business, we don't really make any revenue unless we actually transport somebody.
Oh.
So we can run all day out long out there, and if they say I don't need an ambulance, that's a trip that I got paid for, that she paid, that I thought paid for, but didn't produce revenue on the backside.
And there-
like a truck driver, but that's kind of what the ambulance service is.
As we all know, there is no good answer.
No.
Absolutely no good answer.
No, when I say we picked two, that was the lesser of the evils.
The worst answer is to do nothing different.
That's correct.
I just,
we have to make a choice on which one we're gonna take unless somebody can come up with something different rather than just saying, well, that's not gonna work.
we're all in the same pickle here. We don't know what's gonna happen when this gets hashed out in Springfield. And, you know, the number, if it's much, somebody goes home, you know. And it's not good.
No, not good.
If we get this put on the ballot, well, first, the election would be when, Lisa?
Next election's March, that's the primary.
Have to have it by when? Know this by
I don't know
6
off the
months?
top of my head.
December or something like that.
Is it?
So what's your reception on this?
Not today.
Not good. Well, I figured. They're worried. When I say they, the fire chiefs, and I'm going to imagine the trustees would be worried. As part of that is, you know, running a business. I mean, I've, you know, tripled my expense. You know, I have to pass that on to my fire department customer also, because I can't pass it on to the person I'm transporting because the government says this is what you charge, Mr. Hack. Or I've negotiated with Blue Cross and Blue Shield and I can't change those. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to fall back on the trustees of the fire districts in my business. They're going to have to help me at least bring my operating margin for my ambulance to zero. That's what we try to do. And ambulances don't make money. Those of you that have been in the business know that. But, you know, zero is what we shoot for. So,
It's a tough game. I mean,
it's horrible, you know.
Russell.
Looking at options, and that's what basically that you brought some options toward the county here, and Dale's mentioned there's some good options. One thing that was mentioned, I'm kind of curious about is, there's what, 8 counties, you said? 7 counties? 9 counties in the state of Illinois that has no 911 service. But they do have police service, they have fire service apparently, and they have dispatching going on. So they don't play by the 911 rules then, necessarily. So it's all about playing with 911 rules. So maybe we ought to check with some of those counties and see what they're thinking. Even though the state's going to say you got to have 911, but if they don't have it.
yeah, but if they're a low population and low government piece of the pie, they can't take anything away from them.
Well, that's
what
exactly.
they'll do is they'll whack us. They'll take something from us.
Well, what I imagine...
Well, that's we don't have it at the time, just like them.
Yeah,
and then they'll whack it from somebody else and give it to us.
Yeah.
Well, what I imagine that they're doing is the equipment that they have is probably antiquated. Because, and what's probably happening and is pushing some of this is that I know, and I know this from happening by radio all the time, is that at some point they say, no, you can't buy that anymore. We no longer support that radio. And now I have a piece of equipment that's a great boat anchor, and you're looking at that $800 expense to go to the next generation. Or even if I upgrade a little bit, I'm still looking at a major expense. So I'm sure they're duct tape, bubble gum, baling wire, things together in those counties to make those radios work. I'm speculating, but I'll bet that's what they're doing.
Yeah. But apparently they took a different option.
Well, we really got a nice system. I mean, I'm probably harder than a lot of people because I gotta be, but I'd like to keep it a nice system, but I don't know how the hell we're gonna fund it, because the prospects in the future don't look good for us. You know, they don't look good.
It doesn't look good for healthcare either, so.
No. Healthcare, fire.
And evidently, we're not too high on what we're doing, because nobody has to do this. They can all do their own dispatching if they want. So we're doing it as cheap as we can do it. I think if somebody can do it better, I'd sure listen.
The struggles that we're having can't keep counties having. You know, the conversation of charging more to their fire departments and EMS providers has already started. You know, it's
The only way to cut costs in this is if you went together with other counties, and that doesn't bode well.
The problem with that is because our county is so large, it would cost a lot of money just to get the radio waves, I guess is all I want to say, to cover Iroquois County. Let's say we combine with KTT, for example. Tammy would have to have the equipment to be able to page out Wellington Fire. That's a long way from KTT.
Well, and it doesn't always work. I mean, look at Fort Iroquois Public Health. They had a different view than we did, and they did. So, I mean, it's not easy to do that.
No, it's not.
But that's the only way, logically, to, it's like school. Nobody likes online school, but that's what we had to do because it's the only way you can run it.
And it's probably going to get worse.
Yeah.
Or better, whichever direction you look at it.
Well, there's still people pissed and Clifton over Central.
Yeah, that was way before I was...
mainly.
Mainly. So, I mean, we're going to have to change
It
it.
wasn't.
I don't know how the hell you're going to do it.
Okay. Any other questions for Kevin? Gene?
The thing I feel about a public safety tax, or like you're talking about, is that everybody that goes through this county is going to help us pay it. It's not just going to be us.
Yeah, it's...
And the thing that I talked about was what Russell was saying about paying for the tax on the phone. Well, if you go to Kankakee, like you said, you don't pay it in Iroquois County. But here I am sitting out in the country, a little old lady, and I need the ambulance, and I'm going to call on the landline, 911, and it's going to cost them just as much as if I had paid for my phone. So
Good.
I think it's, I think the public safety tax is the best way the fairest way to go. We've got to get more income.
Well, just when I started, thinking about this stuff and part of this committee, I started looking at license plates when I was in Walmart out here, and there's a lot of Indiana folks that could help contribute. I thought, what a perfect, perfect way. But every time I shop in Champaign, I get to pay a public safety tax for them. I would think they paid their jail that way in Champaign County.
Something like 9% sales tax.
Yeah, it's kind of high. I mean, I don't think about it though. I go to Champaign, buy what I need to, or I go to Ormond Park to the mall there, and
I'm here,
yeah.
say the trip, don't think of that 9%.
But you always get the same guys. You go to a bar and have a drink, and they'll sit there and tell you how you're just pissing this money away. We sit here and try to keep the whole thing rolling, and then have somebody that hasn't been at a meeting, doesn't understand any of the finances, sitting there telling you're just pissing this money away.
Well, that's
I know, I get
well,
that.
Kevin, stay out of the bar and don't talk to anybody.
Let's not get deep here.
They only say that if somebody's listening.
Well, I think they do it just to get the reaction.
I need to.
All right.
I'll say one thing.
Yep. go ahead.
I think, Gene,
Thank you.
I think everybody misunderstood me when I said a communication device type of tax. Not talking about when you purchase the item. It's the monthly fee that you have to pay when you use that item. If you buy a computer at home, you're going to go on the internet, you're going to be paying a monthly fee to get on the internet to somebody, somewhere.
I'll turn mine
If you
off.
pick up a telephone at Walmart, you're going to pay a monthly fee somewhere. Yeah, other than your disposables. Yeah.
But you can also argue that that's not the user. The user is the person that goes in the ambulance or needs the health care.
Well,
The user is not the one using the phone to call 911.
Well, let the
That's part
user
of the
decide
discussion.
then. Let the user decide, because most of them are going through a communication device.
Thank you,
Because that's
Kevin.
what she's dealing with, is communication devices.
Kevin, thanks for your presentation. Lisa, can we, maybe after this, can we make sure we know when we have to
Yeah.
have this?
Yes, I
If
can
this is
find
the
out.
route we're gonna go, then I know we got a couple months, we're not gonna sit and wait. This is what we're gonna do, we're gonna do it again. Be the 20-person county board that puts it on the ballot, then the 29,000 some odd people have to vote on it, so I mean, it's not. It's more discussions to come, follow, but. Appointments, as far as that, for the vacancy on the county board, there was a Republican Precinct Committee meeting the other day. I went to, I know they did bring a name forward, but I haven't received anything from them in writing. So, maybe it's coming. I bet it will be, but I said that. Forensic audit, while we were in here, July 14th, Andrew Garrett should be here, will be here, finish that up. Public comment parameters. Amanda got copies of what John had. Anybody put any more thought into it? No?
I think you should have something here, if somebody comes in here to a meeting drunk, they don't get to talk.
Okay. We have breathalyzer at the door, probably gonna sleep down. I can tell. I know I can tell.
You say drug, how about good druggie?
Whatever.
Prescription drugs.
But we don't need,
No, I understand.
Under the influence.
I think 9 o'clock meetings, that wouldn't be a problem, but
Are you gonna keep the breathalyzer, Kyle?
no.
Got to take blood tests from all of them.
usually they reach, so it isn't an issue.
Well, alcohol, but there's a lot more problems with alcohol out there.
I haven't seen one where they, I just think there should be some,
With all the cheap stuff on the market today, there's a lot of stuff worse than alcohol.
Any other thought on this, John?
I did do a little bit of research on the internet and found in Boone County, they limit their public comments to 2 minutes. In Ford County, it's 3 minutes for the school board and the Board of Health. So I think 5 minutes is adequate and generous for us as far as the time limit goes based on what others are doing. A couple other places don't really have a policy evident that you can see on the internet, so it's hard to tell what you've got. As far as what Kevin is suggesting, I think, a person could be under the influence of alcohol, could be under the influence of drugs. So that might be a good thing to consider incorporating as well. But it may or may not be
might
easy
not be enforceable.
Right. Well, and it may or may not be possible to identify some of that immediately. I would think, to some extent, item number 4 about the type of comments and so forth and using appropriate language and all that, I think if a person is under the influence of some kind of substance, they might be engaging in activities, such as what we're talking about there. But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, anybody
The way I understand it is we have the right to establish the policy that we think we should have, and that's it. I don't think there's any limitations on what that policy would be.
And if I understand it right, you can set the policy going forward. You can't just make it up arbitrarily from meeting to meeting.
No, other than that in here, there is some latitude for the chairman of the meeting to grant exceptions.
Yeah.
But
4 might cover it. If somebody with pocket courage usually would be constructive.
If you got somebody that's going to talk on a topic that's extremely pertinent and to the meeting, and it's going to take more than 5 minutes, you got the right to give them that latitude. That's basically what that's all about. One question that I have, and I'm not against any of it, I don't think, but the topic or subject of public comment to be limited to matters currently before the board or committee hosting the meeting. There are public issues out there that people feel the need to bring up that may not be currently under consideration by the board or the committee. My only question is that a reasonable restriction? The next sentence says that if they approach the chairman of the meeting beforehand, they can get approval to speak on that if the chairman feels it's appropriate. That way, if it's a topic that is not felt as appropriate or welcome at that particular meeting, maybe it's something that should be brought up at a different meeting, I don't know, but again,
I understand what you're saying, Dale. 10 years before we ever heard about a turbine being in Iroquois County, I had an old boy come to me and talk about turbines. He hated the idea about turbines. Of course, as soon as he died, his family put 3 of them on the old farm, but he hated turbines, and
They buried him in the cemetery now.
10 years before we ever talked turbines in Iroquois County, he was bringing it to me.
Anything else? Any other ideas?
That's the county board.
Overall, it looks good. I think we'll get it over to Jim.
I think it'd be something you need to, yeah, it's a good blueprint to start with, put in place, and it can always be, when you see issues coming, that you can always change it.
Do we want to have Jim Mr. Devine take a look at it, or do we want to make a motion to put it in?
If we put
play?
it there, I'm sure Jim will look at it when he's challenged.
Yeah?
Well,
He doesn't have to write it up in any form, does he? I'd have to look at it and we can vote on it next week.
No, it's probably best to have it come out as committee. Make a motion to put it on.
Don?
Was there an incident that precipitated the need for a policy?
Specific incident? No, when we had the union in here with everybody, we had 25 discussions, the same thing over and over. But they were all, those guys in the policy meeting were pretty good. We had 28-minute public comment and full board. 23 minutes, I might be a little off.
Well, I'm thinking about, and I realize there might, a time limit probably is a good idea, but I'm trying to remember clearly when Mrs. Finkston addressed us about the bat issue. I don't know, did she get on the agenda with you, or did she just address us during public comment? Because that certainly wouldn't have been, that would be one of the topics Dale was talking about.
That was when Rod was still here, but that was on public comment, I believe.
Yeah, I
Right.
wouldn't want to limit the opportunity for the citizens to come to the board like that.
I like it. I do, I guess, like it that it says, you know, you can, it's trying to put a parameter on it, but a reasonable amount of time in order that it can be extended.
Can be extended. And the bat would have been extended.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably she talked for 7 minutes instead of 5.
Yeah, it's not.
She did a very good job too.
And then you have the issue of who's going to keep the clock.
Yeah. Let Dan do that. He's up there. Have a little air horn and he can shut him down. Okay.
Pull the plug on the microphone.
Do you want to put?
I'll make a motion to approve this, pending state's attorney's approval.
Motion on the floor to approve this public comment policy. Pending state's attorney's approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Russell Bill seconds it. Are there any other questions on the public comment policy in front of you? Not, we'll go ahead and just do a roll call, please.
Raymond,
Yes.
Hanson, Bills,
Yes.
Sure,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yeah.
Barron,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. Okay. Discussion and motion of non-union employee health insurance contribution. Then, after Monday, I'm sure it's before Monday, but after Monday's meeting, there's been several people questioning this. And people help me as we go through this, but it's been past practice that non-union employees are under the same insurance package as AFSCME.
For the contributions made by non-union employees in the past matched those by AFSCME employees. That's the portion, yes.
And currently that is still how it's being done,
True.
because we're a year and a half without
AFSCME and FOP, right?
AFSCME, and, no, it's AFSCME, not FOP. FOP, they
Right.
don't, yeah.
They don't, they got their own health insurance?
Well, they've got different, I don't want to go through it and either, I mean, they're actually, FOP passed, in the last negotiation session, they agreed to what we were trying to get to with a percent base.
Right.
AFSCME had it on there, so it's there in effect yet.
Oh, okay.
We were trying to get
Okay.
everybody on the same page and it just hasn't got there yet.
It hasn't got there yet, okay.
Right.
No, they've never been under FOP, I mean, non-union, nothing to do with FOP.
No.
The road
FOP
deals.
was 15% last year, 20% this year, 25% next year. So AFSCME is the same thing, but they're a year and a half behind their agreement. So if something happens with AFSCME in the near future, they will go right to 20%. So therein lies the question, do you want to move the non-union people right now to 20% to match FOP and to what AFSCME is going to be when and if that ever gets approved? Instead of it being a big shock to go to 25 or whatever, that you're stepping it in.
There it is where it gets a little, not a little, it gets a lot murky water, sticky situation with, you go back, you backdate the stuff to when AFSCME will find it, do you cut it off now? Been past practice, we've done it as AFSCME, but there's no policy, according to everybody that I've talked to, and there's no written policy, right?
There is no written policy, and I checked with Hibben yesterday, and Hibben says for the non-union group, you can change it to whatever, whenever.
That's right. Yes.
There would be no issue with changing that now, even though, you know, in the past what we did was something, there would be no issue with doing that.
Anybody have a thought on that? I know it's the first time I thought of it, but
Sounds like we did it right in the past, we probably have to continue to do it that way.
I'm not entirely sure we changed anything right now with the situation.
Right. Until it actually happens.
No, it's not budgeted. It's not a shortage or anything, no. The piece that's budgeted in the AFSCME is the increases, because the AFSCME will go back. They'll get a retroactive pay increase a year and a half.
They possibly could get a retroactive.
They possibly could, depending on, you know, who knows what's going to happen. That's the concern. A year and a half ago, we didn't change the non-union, and I didn't think of it, but I truly didn't think we'd be a year and a half down the road in the process and not have that approved.
It is interesting, we're blamed for not giving somebody a raise, but yet we've had the money budgeted for.
I guess that's my question. Do you want to do something about the non-union employee contributions to group health insurance now, or do you want to wait until something happens with AFSCME and broach it then? There is no need to. They can be completely separated.
In one sense, everybody knows this is coming. Maybe we should try to get some dealers and see if people want to start stepping into it, or wait and get hit with the big one.
I would say based on the feedback I heard, everybody's wound up right now.
Yeah, that's why I'm
In the last week, don't you think?
An accurate statement.
So I would say, I don't know what, I don't know. It's really up to you guys to decide.
The water's more.
Go smoke.
I think you got to be honest with people and tell them what's going to happen and when.
I'd say we wait till the contract.
It could very well be next week, or it could be next year.
Yep, that's what we'll have to do.
Right.
Apparently,
I think that's the right way to do it, right?
everybody, I'm assuming, shouldn't assume, but most people have gotten the memo or been told that this could, not the memo, but they've heard through the grapevine.
I think the word is out.
Yeah.
I would say that. I didn't realize that, but apparently, yes, that was foolish on my part because someone spoke to me about it and I was honest with them and it spread like wildfire. So they know that it's being discussed and the issue becomes, when is it effective? Do you go backwards and retroactively charge some people and give some people a refund? Or do you make it effective immediately?
Are we talking about the situation where we would retroactively charge more and not pay more?
What do you mean and not pay more?
Increase wages?
That's exactly right. That's what would happen. That's what's different. In the AFSCME, they're getting a wage increase
And retro pay,
and retro
probably.
pay. You would go backwards for this other group, and,
No retro pay.
Yeah.
right,
Right.
right.
That's not right.
But some people would get a refund because some tiers went down.
So they felt like they've overpaid.
They have not overpaid. They feel like they
Can you explain
overpaid
it so they know that they didn't then?
because we told them the cost is $420 a month for employee plus spouse and employee plus children. $420 a month. That's what we told them they paid. The county pays the rest. It's about 40 to 42% of the premium cost. We told them that's what it is, that's what they paid, the county paid the balance. So they haven't overpaid, they paid exactly what they told them. But now, with the AFSCME, say it goes down to, for one person, for this year, employee plus spouse, I think, is $421. For those people, they're going to get $3.86 refund going back to last December. It's like $25 for last year. So there's a refund there for them. But they have a union contract. That is different than a non-union person.
But on the other side of the coin, we're going to get
That's right.
pricing from our insurance this next Thursday, right?
Well, that's really
That's future.
irrelevant, right?
Well-
But yeah, we are going to get new prices in a week for next year.
So we'll know.
Right.
I'm saying it'd be easier to balance what you're going to have to do something. Sometimes the money makes you do it when you do it. And if this is a choice, then we have a different option.
The question is, when do you want to make it effective for non-union people? Or do you? Do you want to leave them at $50 a month for single coverage forever? It is completely separate than the union contract.
That's completely separate, but it's completely contingent upon the union contract.
Exactly.
So it's
And
about-
I mean, in a work group, when you have different people paying different amounts, it leads to ill will.
Yeah, people get better.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I said, but...
We got above and beyond more.
But did they respond to coming back to the table?
No, that was going to be
The next thing.
the next thing on the agenda.
Should we defer this decision to finance?
You could, yeah, that's fine. We can put it on the finance agenda and talk about it again there, or come back to policy next month. At some point, there needs to be a policy for this, so whether it's either there's going to be a handful, 7 people that you're not only putting union against non-union, you're putting the non-union against the non-union, because some of them are going to could potentially get money back, some could have to pay into it. If there's a policy, some people are going to be a little upset to start with, but then after that, it's written down, it's in effect, and
The differential between non-unions only shows up when they're covering different people in their family.
yes, when their policy is either single or employee plus. So, yeah, when it changes like that, that's
So if they're only covering themselves, there won't be any difference between them.
there will be, the ones that are only covering themselves would owe money. The ones that,
But there won't be any difference between them.
oh, but,
This one covering only themselves, and that one covering only themselves are going to be the same thing.
well, yeah, there's some hiring dates when they got hired, and there's a couple things like that, but yeah. There's a lot of them that say the same number, so you want to just defer it put it on the finance agenda for right now, and see. Like I said, and then we'll go ahead and do that. Asking negotiations was next. We did send an email, and Hibbins sent an email to David Beck right at lunchtime on Monday after our meeting. Not surprising, I have not heard anything back. So, I mean, talked to him after the meeting, and he was very disappointed in our vote. And he's still talking about appealing it to the Labor Relations Board. They didn't like the ruling. So.
They're probably trying to decide what they're going to tell the local ASME employees are going to be forced to do.
What the union members are going to be forced to do. Yeah, they are dictating when these people get this money.
Just a shame.
All there is to it. They're going to make it extremely difficult for them to get their money. That's all there is to it. So, other than that, on the ASME negotiations, then I don't have anything. And the executive session I just put on there just in case we needed to go into it. And as far as I'm concerned, we're going to do it in the open session from now on. So, maybe in trouble there too, but just so you know. Correspondence. We got some Muhammad Aquifer newsletters that I'm sure everybody's been waiting for eagerly.
Russell gets it last, because otherwise we don't get it.
He's going to keep it and take it home. We got a letter from, the same letter that we got about the grant, suspension of that grant. We just got a hard copy now. Everybody had one of those on Monday.
They got a copy of our check though, didn't they?
That I hope so. It was sent, so
Certified?
I believe so. Fast as humanly possible to get there. This is just the state's attorney, health prosecutor, this is Hibbins still, this doesn't go here. As that goes around, you have the claims list in front of you. All that is up because of the traveling you had to do to mileage and whatnot. No big surprises on there if you want to see the claims. They're there. If you don't want to see the claims, I'd entertain a motion to approve. Dale Schultz moves to approve the claims presented. Dan Raymond seconds it. Question, John?
No.
You just took a second, okay. Any questions on them?
Just scratching my nose.
There we go. Any questions on the claims? If not, clerk call the roll, please.
Raymond?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Stowe?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
Barron?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes. Old business? Anybody? Seeing none. New business, anybody? None of that? Oh, wait, John, sure.
I'd just like to let everybody know that FIPH2 is shut down officially on Tuesday of this week. And post office box was closed, bank account was closed. Post office was instructed to return any first-class mail to the sender, and the other mail they were instructed to throw it in a dumpster, or however else they dispose of it.
All that vendor advertising goes to the dumpster?
Well, would you like I had told them to send it to you?
No, I got something forward. Did they order another dumpster?
Yeah. I don't know. Other than that, I mentioned to Dale before the meeting began, it's an issue that seems like it's never going to end, but we felt like we needed to end it. And 10 minutes before we went to end it, we got a phone call from the state with some matter that has been handled, but I mean, it just shows you how these things are just going to be going on and on and on. You got to draw the line someplace, and that's what we've done. Everybody's agreed to it, in Ford County as well as here, so I just want you to know it's done. And someday in the near future, we'll be destroying the remaining checks. If anybody wants to attend that ceremony, let me know. I'll be glad to accommodate you.
He decided not to burn them on the table.
I think all the other papers and records that's occurred over the past year that we have will be put in the storage box and kept here. So I mean, that's basically it's over and done with. Thankfully.
Summary is it's over and done with. There you go. Any other new business? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
From Bill, is there a second? Lyle Barron. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.